Now we all got to be silent. No, just kidding.
Hello, my name is Yvonne. I'm with JK Lifestyles with Yvonne. Today, I have three people joining me. It's Koya Bacardi, it's Teresa LaRue, and Mr. J. How is everyone today? How is everyone?
Dandy.
Okay.
Fine.
Good, good.
Good.
Okay. Um, Today, what I wanted to talk about was why do people stay in unfulfilling or unhappy relationships or marriages?
Who would you like to go first?
You go first, Mr. J.
So, I think there are elements that people stay in relationships that are things that we all know, such as, sometimes we have a financial dependency on somebody, or sometimes we stay with somebody because we believe in marriage vows, if it's a marriage situation. Sometimes I think we stay in relationships out of obligations. For instance, there's a lot of times we have difficult issues with our parents, but society says, oh, you need to respect your mom and dad. And so even though we probably should have boundaries with them or even lovingly love them from a distance, and that means no interaction, no communication, we don't do that because society tells us, looks down on us if we don't talk to our parents. There's also situations where, depending on the childhood we came from, where we want to prove something to ourselves. You know what? My mother never loved me. My father never loved me. My grandmother never loved me. I'm going to prove I'm a lovable person. So I'm going to stay in this relationship and make this person love me. So it's more of, something that's more selfish for us is that I'm forcing somebody to do. So we stay in relationships for all different kinds of reasons. Unfortunately, for women that have a biological clock, maybe it's like, listen, I only got another 2 or 3 year window. I want to stay with this person or else because I want to have a child. So I'm going to start there and then I'll let the rest of the beautiful people chime in and give their input.
Okay. Koya?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I just wanted to, as I was listening to you, because there are a myriad of reasons, because we're all unique beings, right? But I also thought about sometimes we become comfortable being uncomfortable. And so then becomes now this new to think of a new chapter now becomes scary because it's so different, though it still may be beneficial to you and something of value to you. It's just quite daunting. And you maybe reflect on a couple of relationships that I know of where I've asked, why have you decided this is the story for you when you're unhappy? But they have been there for a while. And to do something different was more scary, more traumatizing in a sense. It wasn't, I'm thinking finances, it was so many different factors that it just made more sense in their unhappiness to stay there because at least they knew that. So, yeah, so there's just a myriad of different reasons. But I think of a good friend who took a chance on themselves and said, though I may be frightened, and it wasn't necessarily a bad union, but it's just never, it didn't fit them anymore. And so now they're starting over. And it spoke volumes to me of just the resilience of humanity because the person had been there for about 30 years. But it can be definitely a myriad of instances as to why.
Teresa?
Well, in my case, as you know, I'm a domestic violence survivor and thriver now. And when I was in that situation, a couple things made me stay there. I promised him I would never leave him and that I would always be there for him. And so every time he started with the abuse or the name calling or the emotional, the mind control, anything, he said, but you promised you'd never leave. And then I'd go, okay, I promised I'd stay here. Um, and that was not being fair to myself. That was letting him rule everything. I was not being fair to myself. I should have made a promise to myself first that you deserve the best. And if you're not getting it, leave. Where domestic violence is concerned, a lot of people will stay. Jay was correct, with finances, or they'll stay because it is a promise in a marriage vows. Similar to me, I was not married, but I promised. A lot of people will stay because they don't want the stigma of breaking up this happy, this and on appearances, a happy relationship. My abuser, everybody would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky. He's so good looking. He's so this, he's so that, he's so whatever." And honestly, I remember one time being very flippant with someone that said that. I said, "Do you want him?" And she kind of went like that. And I said, "He's not what he appears to be." And it's also where domestic violence is concerned. Believe it or not, 70% of victims will stay in an abusive relationship because of a pet, not a child, pet.
Mhm.
And, that's why my 501(c)(3, we've partnered to get that out of the equation and off your plate. So you can make that decision. And it is scary. Koya was correct. It is extremely scary because you're familiar with what's going on now. You know he's going to drink too much or get high or whatever, and then you're going to end up, on the end of his fist or through a coffee table or in a wall or whatever. You know that. You don't know what's going to happen if you try to get out of that relationship. So I agree with both of the other suggestions or comments.
Yeah, and if I can just piggyback, because I think it's, Hoya, one of the things that she was saying is, being comfortable, even if it's in an abusive situation, because one of the things, unfortunately, and this gets very messed up mentally, is that predictability gives us a sense of safety. But
It's
even if
security.
But
Yeah.
here's the deal. Even if we're in an abusive relationship, it's still predictable. Hey, he
Yeah.
might jack me in the jaw next Tuesday, but I know and so mentally it plays with our mind because that's a sense of safety. It's predictable. When we leave a relationship, even whether we're going to get into another relationship or not, all that's unpredictable. And that can be scary. And then absolutely, to Teresa's point, there's also trauma bonding, which people stay in relationships and trauma bonding. There's breadcrumbing. Let me just give you a little bit to keep you, hanging on, but I can't, and then you're trying, you want more and you want more and you want more. And so you stay in a relationship. So absolutely, both of you guys brought up some amazing points.
Do you think that the person knows what they're doing when they sit there and throw a couple of breadcrumbs just to keep you hoping for more or thinking that you're going to get more? A person who is the dominant person or the person that's trying to control, do you think they purposely do those type of things to keep your hopes up, to make you feel like it's going to get better?
I personally absolutely agree with that. I think that they're very manipulative in such that, like my abuser, for example, he knew when I was really close to the end of my rope and then he acted really sweet. He'd bring home flowers or say I was beautiful or whatever. I'd go, "Oh, there he is. That's the guy I fell in love with. There he is right there." And then so a couple days later, when he, started back up again in his, abusive performances, I called them. When he would start doing that, it would I would be up and I wouldn't be knocked down as far.
Mhm.
So yeah, I completely agree.
If the
You
word
know,
you said, use the word manipulator, and the word manipulation definitely came front of mind. I believe manipulators are intentional and deliberate. They know
Yeah.
exactly what they're doing. And I even lean into, even if she or they may not forecast it, they're seeking to control. And so it may not be planned out. I'm going to throw Kolya into a wall. Not that this is my story, and I'm so sorry that you or anyone has had to deal with this, but seeking something to keep that person in bondage. So yes, I do believe that it is
Mhm.
something that the psyche, um, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely. The false promises, the false hopes. Um, and the one thing that would get to me is, the next day or 2 days later, he'd say, "What happened to your eye?" And I just stand there and I'd be like, are you kidding me? You don't remember your fist making contact with my face. You don't remember that. Oh, wow. I did that. Oh, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's another manipulative way to
Yep,
minimize or
absolutely.
invite you
Mhm,
into
mhm.
joining in their delusional world, which
Yes,
is
Yeah.
yes.
um,
Yeah,
but absolutely, unless somebody is an absolute certified psychopath or narcissist, I believe
yes.
there's a lot of planned manipulation along with this.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
And we have found just in my research and dealing with the justice centers, a lot of abusers are bipolar males.
Mm,
And because their testosterone is going crazy, it's a sign of weakness to take their medication. It's much easier for them to spiral out of control and add in the drugs, the alcohol, and stir it up in a big bowl. And when I remember distinctly grabbing my abuser, taking him to the store and grabbing his prescription saying, take this now. And he's standing
mhm,
there crying. He's sobbing because it thought it made him less than a man. I said, no, when you hit me, it's less than a man. When you hurt
mhm.
me, it's less than a man. But he was determined not to take that medication. Determined.
Yeah. I think anger gives us a false sense of
Yes.
Mhm.
empowerment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you on that.
How many people stay because of the children? If
I would
there's,
say most.
yeah, if there's kids involved, it's kind of hard to pick up and go financially, caring for two children, providing to keep a decent environment for them to live in. I think that makes
Well,
people stop.
I completely agree with the children and also the abuser or whoever is inflicting trauma on you or emotional distress. They're utilizing those kids as a
Mhm.
pawn against you as well. And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the kids never see him actually hurt me." Oh, yeah, they do. They hear
Yeah.
it, they see it. They're not stupid. And
Mhm.
it's much healthier for them to be out of this relationship, and it's unfortunate, but a lot. I would say it's more than pets. I would say it's probably 80%.
Mm,
Yeah, and I just want to also mention that, let's take historically speaking, just for the purpose of this podcast, let's just
mhm.
take a male-female couple, and let's say the male is the one who's abusing. A lot of times, unfortunately, historically speaking, the woman would stay home and take care of the kids and the family. So it was the men who were out there not only building up their credentials from a career purpose, but if they happen to rub elbows with the law or whatever, now if they know cops, if they know judges, whatever, they will use that. If you go, I will make a phone call and you're the one that'll be arrested, or I know so and so, or what have you. Then there's also physical fear of if you leave me, I will not only find you and beat the crap out of you, I'll beat the crap out of your parents and what have you. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of those threats as well, where people will stay just again from submission.
If
Correct.
if
I
if
completely agree.
Yeah.
if I may ask a question, Teresa, and it's a bit non sequitur, yet conversely, I've had two stalkers. It's not definitely not a badge of armor. And when I've gone to the police, I'm not protected. It's pretty much waiting for me to arrive in a body bag. There's no laws. I work with a stalkers awareness, and I may tear up because it's something I deal with daily. And so when you just brought up about the police, I just stopped. Did you feel protected by the police if you ever had the opportunity to speak with them? Because I know that the laws are so vague. Um, and I felt more so that my stalker is protected versus me. And I purposely even now do certain things. I stop doing certain things and I do certain things because he can just show up. And because
Sure.
he's someone that's in the community, it's like, oh, well, he's okay, but you're out here. So did you feel or do you feel that the laws are protecting those who are experienced or have experienced DV?
No, absolutely not. I think that it's one of those things that the abused has to prove
Yeah.
that they were actually, what happened. They're not believed. And, as a certified domestic violence counselor, I work with the Sacramento sheriffs as well as the Justice Center out here. And we work with the actual abused. And they have stories. I went to work and my lip was split and I had a black eye and my shirt was torn. There was blood all over the place. And the police said, "What happened?" And I told them, and they were like, "Are you sure?" Very condescending. So that's one of the things that I've been working to change is how first responders, because when I was actually held at gun, he was held at gunpoint. He had a knife to my throat, and I thought I was gone. I thought that was it. And I made eye contact with a police officer. And at that moment, that was the only moment I felt protected. At that moment was that I was going to get out of that because I had more to do. And I knew that I had to do this. I had to have a mission and be a voice for those who couldn't speak. But in the ambulance, for example, they never made eye contact with me. They looked down at the ground. They were whispering in the hallway. I was made to feel like I had done something wrong. And I think that's horrific. I mean, you're adding kerosene to gasoline to the fire. And so unfortunately, every state is different. Some of the Midwest states are Oklahoma and Arkansas have the highest cases of domestic violence because you do have those police forces and first responders that have no idea what domestic violence is because you don't call the police, you don't get an ambulance, none of that. You don't report it. Oh, I fell. Oh, I tripped. Oh, I ran into the wall. Whatever. And I'm sorry that you're going through that. Stalking is not fun. He did that to me a few times, and it was very intrusive and very scary.
And if I may, the one of the issues with stalking is that number one, it's a mind F. Sorry if I offended anybody by saying that. Because you don't know, like when you're in the shower, when you're in your home, when you're driving down the street, when you're in a store, are they in the next? It's a constant mind F, which is number one. Number two, it takes so much evidence to prove somebody's stalking you and so it's like it almost becomes a full-time job. Then on top of that, at best, depending on the state you're in, okay, I'll get an order of protection. Order of protection doesn't stop a bullet. Order of
No,
protection doesn't.
it's a piece of paper, and
Right.
and I had that numerous times. And the next thing I know, he's pounding on the door, screaming at me at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I called the police, and of course, by the time they get there, he's gone. But
Yeah.
what has it done to my world?
Yeah, and then he might get a warning.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Why did things escalate to that point? I mean, to me, if someone displays that behavior to me, I would think that they just don't like me very much. Why stay there? Why would a person, male or female, that feels that they dislike someone so much that they would treat them in such a manner, why don't they just pack up and go?
I'll just say quickly and then I'll be quiet. I don't know if it's a matter of they don't like you so much. It's they don't respect themselves so much that they're going to behave in this way. And then it could result in insecurity. I don't want to be alone. You're going to stay with me. It becomes a power thing of you're not going to leave me. That makes them maybe look bad or something. But I don't necessarily think it's a matter of I mean, it could be they don't like you, they don't respect you, whatever, but it absolutely starts with a lack of self-love, a lack of self-respect for them to do something like that.
Well, and also abuse is generational as well. My abuser saw his grandfather beat his grandmother. He saw his father beat his mother, and he saw his older brother abuse his wife. So it was expected. And I was appalled. We were sitting around the dinner table one night, and the brother said, "Yeah, remember the time I broke your jaw? Ha ha! You couldn't eat for like 6 weeks." And I was just sitting there stunned. But then I felt horrible because I knew that I was that person as well. I was allowing him I allowed someone else. That's why my book is called My Rock, My Hard Place, because it wasn't anybody else's hard place. It wasn't a hard place. It was my hard place. I made it and allowed it to happen. I created it.
Why
And
did,
it's good.
okay, why does someone allow that type of behavior toward them?
You
Anyone?
guys, I'm speaking way too much.
I think
No,
I am.
No, I think,
That's
and
what
no,
you-
and I think we're all, and I'm taking, I'm absorbing, I'm loving it all. So please remind me to
I
say
am
something.
too.
But I think, going back to what you both said, what became, a couple of things came to mind, and I've heard a couple of younger, wonderful human beings say this. I heard the term haters hate. If you hate yourself, you're going to exude that hate. And what also came to mind is cycles of trauma. What Teresa was speaking about is your reality, your experience is your reality. And so you manifest that in so many different ways. And so I think you said your question was, why doesn't someone leave? Or well, could you repeat what was your question?
Why does someone allow that kind of treatment towards themselves? So, I mean, so many people, it's not isolated to you, Teresa.
Yeah.
No, there are things that I've taken that I should have said, but I didn't. But I just wondered, why does someone allow this type of treatment? I don't know. I guess that boils back
I think
to
there's
my
a myriad of answers, but this is something I had to deal with, not in this situation, but I used to try to fix people, right? I thought I could fix, and I'm not here to fix it. I needed to attend to my own trauma and to go into kind of figure out those things too. But in some instances, when I know I've been in relationships where the person spoke to me just rudely, it just didn't land gently with my heart space. It may have worked for someone else, but I thought, oh, we can do this together and he'll figure it out and he'll see. And now I'm 2, 3 years in and it's still the same and I'm still hurting. I was trying to fix. It was never meant for me to be there. So then I had to look internally and figure out, to what you're saying, why are you staying here? And it was because I wasn't addressing my own issues and it was very comfortable. I felt loved in my own macabre way. And so what I had to learn is, hey, there's a difference between a project and my purpose. And I'm not here to fix and attend to a project. They can go to Home Depot. But and I'm saying it tongue in cheek, but I think sometimes in our humanity, one of the reasons maybe because we want to help, we want to support, we want to fix, and we may authentically love and care and adore this person, but we're negated to give that same grace and adoration unto ourselves.
Well, we should be first. And unfortunately, when you're in one of those kind of relationships, whether it be any of the list of types of abuse, when you're in that, you're not loving yourself. You've lost yourself. I lost myself. My worth went down. I mean, girl, I was on the clearance rack at the Dollar Tree when he got finished with me. And I knew I belonged in that cool little Tiffany's box with the white bow. That was my worth. But I allowed him to take that worth from me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're that low, I don't know about you, but I had a trigger one day. I tried to help him and try to get him into a halfway house. I had to pull so many strings, call in so many call in so many favors, and he did not show up for me to take him there. And at that moment, I said, that's it. I changed my telephone number. I changed the locks on the apartment, everything. That was the trigger. And I did not allow him back in my life after that day.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
Wow,
I think, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the boiling frog syndrome, but if you guys were to go on a date and the guy reached over on the first date and punched you in the jaw, you'd be like, oh, H no, goodbye, never see you again, blah, blah.
I'm out of here.
But when you start investing hours and days and weeks and months and years, and they're slowly turning, it's like a frog that sits in water and there's a slow simmer under it. you don't realize the water's getting warmer and warmer and
Yeah.
warmer and hotter and hotter. Next thing you know, you're boiling and you can't jump out because your legs don't move. So I think a lot of it is that the boiling frog syndrome. So absolutely. And when you stay in an abusive situation, you lose yourself. So
Yes.
you're not working with the faculties that you need to get out. And then unfortunately, I think, and maybe this is with more of the younger population, we live in a day and age where everybody wants to come across as flashy. I'm in a good relationship. I got money. Look at where I live, where I drive. So a lot of people that are in abusive situations, they want to keep up the presence, even if that
Mm.
presence is, putting on some mascara and some eyeliner and some shades before you walk out because you got a black and blue eye. Nobody wants to go and say, you know what? I was in an abusive relationship. Things weren't all hunky dory in my life.
Yeah.
Okay, our time is just about up. Any last words?
I would like to say with one thing that helped save my life just coming out of trauma, sexual abuse, and bulimia. I heard an African proverb that says, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside would do me no harm. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside would do you no harm. You are the author of your greatest love story, of your love story, yours. And it's taking ownership of your heart space, of your mind, and your spirit. Is a bold statement because the world doesn't always tell us. We talk about mindfulness now, but I didn't always hear that outside of just my parents' circle. But you are the greatest author of the greatest love story, y'all.
Okay.
I love that. That's great. I love that.
Okay. Thank you for joining me today. That's Koya Bacardi, Mr. J, and Teresa LaRue. Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.